Well, you just be stubborn and speak against it as I do, and praise activities of the mind, because
Just stick to your guns.
yeah, on our great victory in the Gulf, blowing the bejesus out of this third world country that hardly shot back. That's killing all those kids, as that's what they were. You didn't dare say a word against it, because Dan Rather thought it was all right. Peter Jennings surprisingly agreed with him. CNN agreed with them. McNeil and Lehrer looked into it, and this was all pretty good. And then they took a poll, and 87% of the American people thought this was pretty good. And, I mean, it was such a tragic thing. It's always tragic when you kill a whole lot of people. It's not fun. It's tragic. And, but, in a restaurant, talking to somebody else about this, I had to be very careful, because people around you could hear, And
what is that balance between, like, the democratic principle? Well, America was behind it, so in some way it was justified, and then the vote, the wants of the minority or whatever, those few people that may have been against it are sitting there and talking very, very, very quietly. They don't want it known to the general population that they are not.
But the CBS, NBC, CNN, PBS News, McNeil, Lehrer, and all that are all at one with the government. It's one big ball of wax. They always agree with the president. They won't criticize him. They wouldn't criticize Reagan no matter what he said, no matter how absurd it was. And so you don't really need any censorship. We're
doing it ourselves.
Yeah, well, we're all getting our news from one source, and the journals who do some reporting about what's really going on, about the rascals who cleaned out the savings banks or whatever. I catch hell for being a bad American, is criticizing the government and everything. Nobody criticizes the guys who, got us to buy the damn black boomerang. What is it? It's supposedly invisible. Turns out to be not invisible. Billions of dollars. No, they're good Americans. The guys who cleaned out the insurance companies and the savings banks, they're just businessmen. They're good Americans. The only bad Americans are people who say, hey, these guys are robbing us blind. And our school system's falling apart and all that.
So you see little evidence that America's a kinder and gentler nation?
No, because they're getting information all from one source. Which is essentially the White House.
Now, your books about war and the absurdity and stupidity of war have been embraced by a generation of youth who oppose the conflict in Vietnam. Do you feel you have the same relationship with the youth today that, let's say, you had 20 years ago?
I'm not interested in the youth. I don't write teenage fiction. I write grown-up fiction, and it is true that my books are taught in colleges and often in high school. No, but most of my mail is from people my age. As I'm not a writer, and people who try to lessen the impact of what I talk about as pacifism or whatever, or just mercifulness or compassion. That's what. Well, he's just a writer for kids. Well, I'm like hell. My mail is from college professors and ministers.
Were you surprised in any way that that youth generation did embrace you so wholly?
Well, it's nothing I looked for, and very few writers can write for a particular audience. It really is a free market, and each one of us has to bloom. As if you're a tulip, is you damn well going to bloom as a tulip or a rose or whatever. And so then you see what the free market thinks of this, and and people, there have been a lot of people who liked what I've written, and so here I am in business, and that's all I do now because I've sold books in that quantity. But it is a genuinely free market.
Can you argue the free market, though, supports things like the war in the Persian Gulf?
Well, no, this is the only free market there is. The artists are the only people who operate in a free market, as everybody else has special favors and deals from the government, subsidies and big whacks of money and special laws and all that. And what most businessmen are complaining about is the free market. Is you can't send us out there and just leave it up to the customer.
And I need a
but
special
that's what
favor.
artists have to do. It's interesting. The guy who has been showing me around here, who's working with the Indiana Humanities Council, I guess it's called. His name is David Hoppy.
Right, we've talked with him. We've had him in here before and talked.
Well,
to
he's
him.
worth a trip because we've been driving around talking about one thing or another, and he talked about Americans' feelings about the arts, and you know how it's come out recently is the outrage over certain exhibitions is the what the Mapplethorpe pictures.
Right.
And he said that Americans are used to seeing art in advertisements, in a beautiful picture in an ad.
Mm-hmm.
That's to sell you something.
Right.
And the words underneath are to sell you something. And so when they see anything written or any picture, they assume it's trying to sell something.
Trying to sell you that idea.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so they look at the Mapplethorpe thing and they say, this is an ad for buggery. And it isn't.
And they're saying this is the way all of America should be because we bought into that salesmanship.
Yeah, and they're not selling it to anybody. But the American, I'm not buying that, and my kids aren't going to buy it either. Nobody's trying to sell it to you. They're just trying to make you stand in relationship to this picture. It's just you and the picture, and let whatever happens between you. But it's not an ad campaign, you know. It's not like the Saturn is. The Saturns are coming out now,
right.
And there are going to be lots of ads for that, and people are going to say, well, I want a Saturn or I don't want it. But art isn't like that. And they would see my books as selling something.
Yes, I was just. What about your own experiences with school boards that would not have some of your work in the school?
I'm not selling anything. I'm just creating a work of art to which you respond. It is not a sales pitch to which you are supposed to say yes or no.
How do you characterize the moral consciousness of America today?
Well, we used to be a merciful people. We used to be a humane people. The great generals during the Second World War, Omar Bradley, George Marshall, Dwight Eisenhower, their faces showed that war was a tragedy. And it is a tragedy. They're killing our young people. We're killing other people's young people.
Young people.
And there was the one nut we had in that war was George Patton, who really seemed to enjoy it. But even he spoke of the courage of the German soldiers he was killing and saying they were good men, you know, and they were worthy adversaries. And now it's just fun.
You really think so? You really think that?
Well, no,
that we have that?
CNN does.
No, I think you think that that is what is trying to be sold to America?
Well, look at how happy General Schwarzkopf is, and no tragedy on his face, no sense of tragedy. Look at tragedy. Look at Abraham Lincoln mourning all who died at Gettysburg during the Spanish-American War, which was a jingoistic war. It was America that was most jingoistic. But when the cruiser Texas set the Spanish cruiser, I guess it was a cruiser too, the Vizcaya, on fire in the Battle of Santiago Bay and down in Cuba, the crew started cheering, and the skipper said, "Don't cheer, lads, the poor devils are dying." Now that's all over with. Now it's all just a hell of a lot of fun, even if you bulldoze them underground. As you know, they're hiding underground, and just send bulldozers over and suffocate them under there. And these are kids. And what I said last night, I spoke at the Indiana Roof there, at a word-struck party, and I said, I'm a Hoosier, still talk like a Hoosier, and I'm a Shortreach High School person. And I'll tell you, a purely Shortreach, purely Indianapolis, purely Hoosier reaction to our great victory in the Gulf. is I saw pictures of these Iraqi kids with their hands up, you know, their heads ringing with this terrible shelling they'd taken, thirsty, hungry. Well, I was in exactly that same condition during the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans had superior technology, much better weapons, and we were just kids, and we wound up, they sent the best they had, everything they had, the best tanks, everything, unexpectedly. And so I was ragged, I was hungry, I had seen a lot of people die, and I had the hell shelled out of us, and I was just a kid. And when it was all over, there were Americans like this, as far as the eye could see, kids, dazed, disarmed. And so when I saw pictures of those Iraqi kids like this, is my Hoosier response, my short-reach response was, there are my brothers.